Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another DevFest event. I am Nicholas Mendez, your host for today from Google Developer Group Port of Spain. And it's my pleasure to welcome you in yet another one of our regional organizers, Jean-Pierre. Hey, Jean-Pierre, how are you doing?
Hey, good afternoon, Nicholas, and good afternoon, everyone else. My name is Jean-Pierre Soligny from GDG St. Nicholas. That's from Aruba. And yeah, thanks for having me here, Nicholas. So, yeah, let's get started.
Awesome, thanks. But before we start, can you talk a bit about your DevFest event? I know you all had yours a bit earlier.
Yeah, well, I had mine the 1st of December, and online we had more viewers than on site. And we had a few speakers. We had a student, a 15-year-old, super awesome. He spoke about Firestore security rules and so on. Pretty amazing that he could explain himself about that. And the other speakers were super cool as well. And we're relatively new. So this is like our second Death Fest. And hopefully the third one, we will want to make it bigger and more have more speakers as well to come and present themselves. So the idea is to have the local developers or people that are in tech on Aruba to present themselves and talk about tech or everything surrounding the tech.
Yes. And I was there for that talk virtually, of
Exactly.
course.
Yeah.
I was really impressed, but how articulate he was. And
He's
he
the
was
new one. He's the new one.
yeah, he was up there, and he was using Firebase security rules, and then I believe he did it something to do with blockchain, or was integrated them somehow in calculating the blocks, which was something very interesting.
Yeah.
And then I saw you had a talk about Scrum and adopting Agile and like the challenges it might have culturally to fit that into local context.
Correctly. Yeah. Yeah, basically what Lucien spoke about is I think something that is regional in the whole Caribbean.
Yeah.
We have a cultural thing and it's gonna take time.
Yes,
It will take
definitely.
time. Yeah.
Definitely. So let's get into the agenda for today. All right. So DevFest 2023 on Port of Spain side of things. Before I get into the agenda, I'd be remiss not to mention the team. So these are your organizers, alongside, we work in the back. They work in the background to get things up and running. We have LaShawn Ramden, of course, and Maria Davina O'Brien, Chantal Barry, and our newest organizer is Christopher Flus. So we're really happy to help him on the team, have him on the team. And it won't stop there. If you're interested in participating in the organization of these kind of events, do let us know. Do reach out to us on the Google Developer Group community platform. We'll paste a link by the end of the event, but it's gdgcommunity.dev. Okay. So what we have for today, right now we're going through a welcoming introduction. Then our first talk is going to have a cybersecurity interview with Shiva Pasram. Then we're going to have a bit of a switch, right? We're going to bring up our talk with Akil Hossain for genetic algorithms and the traveling salesman problem. Then we have inspirational talk from Jade Ganga, making something from nothing. Then we have a talk from a regional speaker, hailing right from Ecuador. Kevin Morales will be giving his talk on Android architectures. And to round this off at the end of the day, we have Social Engineering and Cybersecurity Edition by Michaela Noel. Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about Shiva Pasran here. Let's see if I get up his bio. So Shiva Pasaram is an enterprise risk consultant. He's the owner and director of the Computer Forensics and Cybersecurity Institute. He's a cybersecurity lecturer, penetration tester, digital forensics investigator at CFSI, author for information security books on pen testing, digital forensics for international tech publishing, tech giants, Pact, cyber mentor for Springboard USA, InfoSec subject matter expert with 20 years in the field of cybersecurity. He's a holder of a MSc Network Security for over 20 international IT and cybersecurity certifications, including the Certified Ethical Hacker and Certified Chief Information Security Officer certifications. and also the only certified EC Council instructor in the Caribbean authorized to teach the certified ethical hacking course. So I actually had the pleasure to sit in one of his classes, workshops for ethical hacking, and it truly was something to learn about the different tools in train. Jope, have you played around with any type of pen testing or hacking by chance?
No, no, not me myself. I know my son is busy with the ethical hacking and
Oh wow!
cybersecurity. He's 19, and that is what he wants to be very good at. So he's busy with it. So everything I know a lot about it, but he's giving me the specific details, and that's how I learn and like more and more about it.
All right, awesome. So without further ado, let's get right into our talk.
We all have modems and Wi-Fi routers.
Hi, good day, everyone. Welcome to once again DevFest 2023, Google's developer group Port-of-Spain. And as typical, we start off with the very important topic of cybersecurity. So I'm really honored to have with me on this chat this morning, Shiva Pasram from CFSI. Hi, Shiva, how you doing?
I'm okay, Nicholas. Thanks for having me, man.
Awesome. So we just want to have a chat about cybersecurity, things that have been happening locally. But before we get into that, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. I'll try to keep this brief. So yeah, my name is Shiva Parasram. I have been in cybersecurity for probably over 2 decades. I think I did my first cybersecurity exam, which was the Security Plus in 2004, and everything just kind of snowballed from there into forensics and ethical hacking, penetration testing, risk management. So I'm the owner of the Computer Forensics and Security Institute. We've been doing um, penetration testing, forensics, and teaching advanced cybersecurity courses like the Certified Ethical Hacker for about 12 years now. I've managed to write about 4 books for publishing on digital forensics and penetration testing. So I spent a lot of time on the laptops, on the dark web. I spent way too much time on the dark web playing Call of Duty, and that's about it, actually. Just a regular guy.
Awesome, great. And I think the first time we met CFSI was having training. I believe it was a kind of open workshop setting. I was actually had the privilege to attend your ethical hacking and I think a bit of forensics as well. I really recall that was a really telling experience. You really went under the hood, and I appreciate how you really give us in depth and a real idea of all the different fields of cybersecurity. So I'd like to talk about that now. When people think cybersecurity, many people might just think hacking or penetration testing, or maybe people don't even know these terms. So maybe you can just give an overview of what in different fields and what are these things.
Yeah, it's cybersecurity is definitely not this sort of one size fits all type of description that you see in job requirements in particular. They look for, let's say, a cybersecurity analyst or a cybersecurity specialist, but they dump so many things into one job, one field. But ideally, it really is what I think it's just where you continue your knowledge. So, for example, you start off your programming, you start off your networking, and you just want to journey inside of there because it's all relative. As long as you build something, you need to secure it. Whether it's a network, whether it's an application, you want to secure your coding, all of these things. So, you have the red teaming, the blue teaming, and when you combine those skill sets, you also have purple teaming. So the red teaming is more the penetration testing and vulnerability assessment. So a penetration test is where a company would perhaps hire you to get into their systems from the perspective of a malicious threat actor, if you will. So that you look for security gaps and loopholes. You may have to do some gap analysis. You identify what's called their threat landscape, right? They have their physical networks, their logical networks, different sites, online presence, social media. All of these things are areas of attack, what you call an attack surface. So you identify the threat landscape, and then you help them sort of implement, hopefully, what is proper patch management. Because When you look at penetration testing and vulnerability assessments, it means that you're looking for a gap, a misconfiguration, something that's not updated. So if companies actually have patch management in process, they could reduce a lot of this. So it's you trying to actually detect where you have missing patches, updates, and then figure out how can this be exploited. That's one aspect. That's more the red teaming aspect of it, where you have penetration testing and vulnerability assessments. The other aspect is blue teaming, and that is more the incident response side of things, right? So it's not just forensics; it's digital forensics and incident response, what we call DFIR. So let's say that an attack took place, and you are now called to respond to it or to do analytics and digital forensics. That's the blue teaming side of it, but the one thing that they all have in common is the understanding of how things work and how things operate. So it goes back to your networking fundamentals, understanding of things like TCP/IP in the OSI model. Um, Without knowledge, without in-depth knowledge of TCP/IP, OSI model, and stuff like that, protocols, you can't do a thing in red teaming or blue teaming. And if you combine both skill sets, so I would have those skill sets that I can show as a penetration tester, a vulnerability assessor, incident responder, digital forensics investigator. When you have all of those skill sets, it's referred to as a purple teaming because logically, when you combine the colors red and blue, you actually get purple, which is how they came up with that. So I guess that's just a quick and dirty rundown of what they are.
Awesome, awesome. So is that why your background is purple by any chance?
I just like the color purple.
Yeah, it's a great color. I agree. So that's really comprehensive. Thank you so much for that. And one thing I really want to talk about, the particular attack surface you mentioned, was the patch management. I wonder if you can give a rough figure of how important that is, or how often the exploits are really happen due to companies just really falling behind and managing the updates. How typical does that happen versus other types of exploits?
Well, that's actually a great question because right now, especially for between 2020 to now, I would say the most common types of breaches they happen, especially ransomware even. It happens either due to phishing attacks or due to some sort of misconfiguration or something not being plugged or patched, as we say. So I would say that between protecting against phishing attacks and running social awareness campaigns, social engineering campaigns, that's one thing. But patch management is not something simple. It's not just to say that Microsoft releases patches every Tuesday and we update every Tuesday. I mean, that's just one aspect. Especially if you run a Windows or a Microsoft Server environment, but you have so many other components inside organizations, especially from the application side of things, the web portals and all of these. So, for example, I think this week there was a huge critical vulnerability in WordPress. And when you think about the amount of sites out there and companies that use WordPress, right? But I don't know how many of them would actually be aware of the fact that there is something this critical. Another one that's being exploited is one called Citrix Bleed. A lot of ransomware companies seem to be exploiting the Citrix Bleed vulnerability to get into systems. So the fact that you have these coming out in such rapid succession, and if you don't have a team or someone to advise you and say, listen, we need to have this updated, that updated. So it's actually something formal where you create some sort of catalog for it, or even if you just want to do it on a spreadsheet and say, okay, so this was updated at this point in time. Yes, you can do vulnerability assessments, but it would make sense also to have someone do research on all of these things, all of the components that you have. So again, you map out your attack surface and your threat landscape. You see what you have and you look religiously, you subscribe to threats and feeds and all of these things to see what needs patching. Occasionally, of course, there will come the time where you have a 0-day exploit, meaning that something was released and we don't have patches for it just yet. But I mean, you just make sure that your logs are okay, look for anomalies, things like that. But I would say that in my personal experiences, only my personal experience, when I've attended to breaches or responded to breaches as a forensics analyst, I would say about 90% of the time it's due to some sort of firewall not patched or website not patched or something like that.
So you think, in your experience, a lot of the issues we may have locally is probably based to some bad practice, some people lapsing here and there.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Because even when you think about the phishing attacks as well, it's just that one person that clicked on an attachment or downloaded an attachment, and then that may have slipped through. If you have Office 365 or you have your mail servers, I mean, yes, those things happen, but I've realized that think about it like this, right? So even for the audience as well, we all have modems and Wi-Fi routers, but when last have you updated the firmware on your Wi-Fi router, if at all? Right, so it's honestly just like that. Inside organizations, they assume that, okay, well, it's working, I'm getting what, I have antivirus, so it stops right there. So this is where it goes. You have to look at all of these devices. Even at home, when you have a lot of people unfortunately have Android boxes, and when you look at these Android boxes for streaming, they come with a really really old version of Android, or something like that. So even the IoT devices, even for home use, it's not just for companies, but there's still that lack of like a cybersecurity awareness culture, both individually and domestically, and companies as well. So that's what I think needs to improve to sort of patch that issue.
Yeah, so that's definitely true. I think we're trying to do a lot to really put cybersecurity in the minds of developers. And I think what I'm seeing sometimes is a big frustration technical people, developers in general, might have is that they might be minded, but they're not getting the support from the organization. The organization think it's too expensive. We don't have time for that. We need this feature out here. We can't have it done securely. They're really looking at the short-term goals and wondering what kind of developer probably do in terms of trying to get more people to listen to them, or trying to get a more security-minded mindset from the higher ups, because I think this is a really important factor.
Yeah, that's honestly that is a huge issue, and there's two things I want to touch on that. The first one is to answer your question, where I think developers will have to go a lot further in terms of threat modeling. So threat modeling means that you have, let's say again, you're developing something, whatever module, anything at all, doesn't matter. But you yourself may or may not be aware of how it could be exploited if it's outdated, not patched, or other security measures aren't implemented off the bat. You'd probably have to do threat modeling, meaning that even with the help of ChatGPT or Bard or one of these things, Claude, whatever it is, AI assistant, you go to them and you plug in the information that you have and let it sort of create scenarios for you about the possibility of it being exploited, what would be the outcomes, what could be the possible damage. So sometimes it's only until you put these scenarios forward to management, they would actually say, okay, well, maybe we should consider spending a bit extra or taking the time to go into this, because of course everyone has a deadline. They want everything done immediately. They assume that developers can just pull something out of a box and say, here, this is what we have. And unfortunately, that is the way it goes. But the other issue there as well is where you have a system that's developed, it's implemented, but the company again does not want to put out the money to revamp or rebuild, because I have come across very large companies, talking about multi-million-dollar companies, and they've spent millions upon millions of dollars developing a system. But time now to upgrade the system, move it across to new servers. It has, it'll probably take a couple million, to do that. They are not willing to do that. So unfortunately, they run the old software on an old server. I'm talking about, I've seen some of them on server 2003 and server 2008. So these are highly, highly vulnerable devices that they would have either internally or unfortunately on a demilitarized zone, a DMZ. So it really is now for the developers to do that threat modeling and present something to them, letting them know, listen, if we don't do X, the result could be Y, which would obviously be detrimental to the company and affect either client trust and profits and all of these things in the long run. So it's reaching to the point now where you have to put it into a business perspective in terms of profits and loss to get that point across to management and tell them, if we don't do this, there's a great possibility that we could experience some high losses. And I think that might unfortunately be one of the only ways to get that point across.
Yeah, I agree. I think a big part uh, of our task as developers is because we are so intermingled with many different things. We know to talk tech, but we have to know how to convert that in the language of the audience that we work with. So we might have to talk about in terms of what's the cost to the business,
Right.
or we might have to like understand what's the effect on the customer. So it's not good enough to just think about code, but we have to bring it up in terms for the business to understand. I think what you mentioned there, bring it in terms of numbers to kind of do the analysis to understand what the potential costs, and I guess a bit of a silver lining or the positive side of when unfortunately incidents do happen, other businesses will kind of look at that and realize like, yeah, these things could have some very severe impacts, and hopefully that will kind of make them light a bit of a flame underneath them to kind of take it a little bit more seriously.
So we would hope, as we've probably seen in recent times, yeah, we can only hope.
So, in terms of what's happening like locally in legislation, we did see that the governments in the latest budget, they laid out in the budget to introduce a cybersecurity investment tax allowance for up to $500,000. So that's really significant. So we can see that in some sense the government are putting incentives in place for businesses to kind of invest more in cybersecurity. It's questionable like what they might consider as a cybersecurity measure, because right now here it's saying just on cybersecurity software and monitor equipment, but that's not really all the kind of cybersecurity services that a company may need, right?
Mhm. That's a really interesting point. How do I say this nicely? I mean, $500,000. It may sound like a lot, especially for a smaller to medium enterprise. Yeah, sure. But in the grand scheme of things, if you look at just the salaries of a security administrator, a secure developer, that's just maybe the salaries for two persons for 1 year. That's it. But
Mm.
if you look at a firewall, for example, which obviously is just perimeter security and that's all it is, the cost of a firewall for a large organization is possibly minimum $500,000 as well. So you still have things like CM and subscriptions for cloud services, local services, monitoring, event management, incident response, training your staff, hiring new staff. $500,000 is not anywhere close to what you would need for a large organization. We're probably talking about $5 million maybe when you think about everything that has to be put in place. Unfortunately, and I mean, I know it has good intention, but let's look at the public sector, for example. If you have to get some sort of system implemented, brand new system, usually there's a three code system, right? So you have the tendering process, and you let them come in. But you have the great products. Obviously, the great products are going to be very expensive. Then you have the products. I'm not saying that they're not so great, but they might offer less, either in terms of what they have, or they have different modules that you could plug in together, or they might just be less popular on the professional readings of. One good example is what we call endpoint detection and response, or EDR. EDR systems, some of them can be free, some of them are cheap, some of them are very expensive. But again, if you have companies putting forth these tenders, and they're providing exactly what was requested, but it may not be exactly what is needed for the organization. It may not be the best that is needed for the organization. That three code system could work against you. And I have seen it done like that, because then again, too, when you have proposals going out, a lot of the work is done by persons who are in finance. So that itself, we want to make sure that you get your IT team inside of there, your developers inside of there, let them know exactly what you have, what needs protecting, and this is how we go about protecting it. So if you don't know those things to begin with, or you don't invite the people who know those things to begin with, you can't even put forward what you really need to give you that protection. You're going to end up buying something. And in Trinidad, it's typical for companies to just buy firewalls and say, that's it. We have a firewall. It's doing
Yeah.
intrusion detection. But on the inside, you have nothing monitoring on the inside. Some of the companies are using free antivirus products, which may not be, it may be okay for home use, but for enterprise use, with what can happen with ransomware groups and lateral movement and stuff, I think a lot more needs to be done. So maybe the government just needs a bit more advice on they themselves, through the Ministry of Digital Transformation. They could probably even help provide resources, work with the Trinidad and Tobago Computer Security Incident Response Team, the CSUT, to even perhaps provide training to developers, persons who are interested, or companies alike. So there's a lot more that could be done, and I'm hoping to see that is probably included in time to come.
Yes, so yeah, I definitely agree with some of those sentiments. I So it seems to me that maybe, this whole cybersecurity awareness, we may not even be aware of how much effort is actually might be needed for a particular organization. And there's a vast amount of options, vast amount of software, which are the best packages that meet my needs. And this just says software alone. So I don't know if like training would actually apply to that, or any kind of consultation. But I think consultation is probably that's the most important thing, in terms of letting a company, organization, enterprise understand what are the needs and to help them navigate the cybersecurity space. So I'm wondering, you think there's like a market for professionals or organizations who have the know-how to come into these organizations, give consultancy, and kind of offer these things as a service, so they won't need to have so much in-house expertise?
Definitely, more so now than ever, which is a great thing for people that are into IT, developing, getting into security. It's actually one of the services that I offer. So companies, instead of having, it works out well for some of those larger companies in particular, because the skill sets that myself and my company would bring, we bring an entire team of both red and blue teamers. So it's an entire set of purple teamers for significantly less than it would cost to bring in an entire team, give them the experience, give them the training, and of course hope that after you do all of this that they're not just going to up and leave, which is a great possibility. Good companies actually pride themselves on being able to train and seeing them off to bigger, even larger companies. But yes, it now is actually a really good time to be in this space as a consultant, offer your skill sets. It works out well for the company, for the individuals, because obviously, for whatever reason, I'm seeing so many jobs where they want you to be on site from 8 to 4, and I'm trying to explain to these companies that cybersecurity does not just happen between 8 to 4, and you can't just have someone at a desk 8 to 4, expect them to come out all night, even if something were to go wrong. Everything can be done remotely. If needed, then you come in. But that as well, is something that has to be considered, because I've been talking to a lot of professionals as well. These are folks, men and women, who maybe have like more than 10 years experience in the field of cyber. And to get us to go through that traffic to get into Port-of-Spain every morning, 5 days a week, it's not going to happen unless you offer a lot of compensation. So it from the consultancy side of things, the consultancy aspect of things, it works out well. A couple hours a day unless needed. For more, yeah, it's good. But for the companies as well, to get that entire skill set from one person or a couple people, it's very, very difficult, because the training there as well is something that's very, very important. The experience as well. So it works out well for a company that's into consultation, or persons like, even if you yourself want to get into the consultation space, it is, I would say, a good time and a good space to be in right now.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a challenge. The cultural mindset, people thinking, oh, you had to be in the office 9 to 5, well, you're not doing any work. But I mean, cybersecurity is around the clock.
Yes.
There are definitely ways to do it remotely. So I don't think they really need someone in the office 9 to 5, but rather someone on call, someone who's responsible for protection between these particular hours, and they have like a shift system, so someone else could kind of relieve them. I think that's more the model that companies should be aware of. So we were talking about CFSI, and that's the Cybersecurity Forensic Institute, which you're the director of, right? And you mentioned that that kind of consultation is like one of the services, one of the things you all do. And what really occurred to me when you mentioned the big task of monitoring all the infrastructure, keeping things up to date, and making sure you're on the the bleeding edge of the latest exploits. Is that something like a service you or some other business could offer? That okay, I know monitoring is very expensive, so we will do the monitoring for you. We will do the audit. We'll keep track, and if anything comes up, we will have the intervention measures. What do you think about that? Is that something?
Yeah, that is one of the services that we offer, because with a lot of companies, to the misconception is that you do a vulnerability assessment or penetration test once a year. But when you look at how many times, sometimes per week, per month, that each piece of software will update and introduce configuration issues or vulnerability issues, sometimes you have a patch that's issued. Microsoft is famous for this. You have a patch that's issued, and they have to issue another patch to patch the previous patch because something went wrong. So it's considering that this once a year thing, it's not going to work for a lot of companies anymore. So the larger companies, they really do need to either bring an entire team, and I do mean a team, when I say like minimum 5 to 10 people, to do monitoring and stuff, or they outsource companies like ours to do the monitoring. There are some of our clients we do monthly vulnerability assessments on all of their critical infrastructure, have a look at their threat landscape, even dig into the dark web and see what was found, what was released, because we've been finding a lot of local information for sale on the dark web, even like actual usernames and passwords. So it really is something that requires constant monitoring, not just on your own company, but even out there on the dark web as well. So yeah, CFSI offers that. I think there may be one or two other companies, but I'm not sure if they offer all of these things combined. A lot of companies, like you might hear that they may be managed security services providers, but some of them may just implement stuff to look at your logs and tell you if they notice some sort of anomaly. But getting that all-in-one service, I don't think there's honestly all-in-one solution. For every company, it'll have to be a tailored solution.
Right. I think that dark web monitoring is a really important service to have. I'm seeing that as there are other services you can do as an individual for dark web monitoring. So that's something that's really popular as well, to see if your user data was leaked out to somewhere. But to do it on an organization enterprise wide, that's the kind of detect if there were any leaks or any kind of compromises that would happen on the scene and someone is trying to sell your customer data. So I think that's something that companies should really be aware of. I want to talk about more in terms of local developments. What are the common practices for developers? Maybe we have new developers watching and they don't want to be caught with the simple, the common issues. They kind of want to get ahead, give them some kind of direction to look into. What would be your advice to them? What are the common problems here?
I think where we don't have to reinvent the wheel or reinvent fire is just for the new developers, have a look at some of the NIST documents, the National Institute of Science and Technology, because there are standards and frameworks for developers and application development and stuff, and best security practices out there. So that is internationally accepted. So you don't have to know as much as I know about security and secure development, secure coding. If you do, great. But as far as best practices go, just find maybe one framework, just have a review of it, try and make sure that you probably could apply it to whatever projects you're working on, and just leave it right there. Don't go too much into if you want to focus and specialize, and it is a specialty to go into secure programming, secure application development, that's fine, right? But at least if you're getting started, I would say a great place is just to look for like maybe some secure coding best practices from NIST, one of those things, and just start from there. Take it small, take it simple, because of course now we have a lot of AI solutions that can even review your code for you to tell you, even from a security perspective, whether it could be open to attack. Compare it to the OSI model, TCP/IP layers and stuff, what threats exist. So don't go overboard. Don't let it go overkill, because if you do, you'll realize that you'll have to scrutinize every single line of code, and that's going to take you maybe a couple of months, years, maybe even to go through some of these things. And the problem we have, and why I'm telling you all not to go too deep, is because as soon as 1 week is over and you deal with the issues from those problems that week, the other week comes, another day comes, you're going to have thousands of new threats coming out there, right? So yes, you keep updated with some of the technologies. You start a nice Twitter feed going, but don't delve too deep into it, because it will hold you back. What I also suggest sometimes is that they have for companies that have their own team of developers, they also include maybe one or two secure coding developers as well. So have those developers look at what are the practices, what are the usual trends in development, and so on, and see, okay, maybe we need to develop a new policy so that we add this specific portion to our development lifecycle, or something like that. Just to keep on top of things, because having one person or just a couple of people try to create, implement, secure, it's too much. And as I mean, developers already consume way too much caffeine, so I don't want to add to that stress.
Okay, great. Now I'm thinking in terms of the students who may be watching. So I teach at the University of the West Indies, and very often our students approach, they might finish their degree, their first degree, comp sci, IT, and they're really interested in how do you get started in cybersecurity. What would be your advice to them?
First of all, forget about the fancy letters, credentials, the fancy terms like certified ethical hacker, and get down into your networking in particular. I really can't stress how important it is to understand the OSI model, your ports, your protocols, TCP/IP. If you can spend a couple of weeks just on OSI model and TCP/IP, that is exactly where you start. Yes, you may have touched on it and you understand it to some extent, but just keep diving into it for about 2 weeks. Spend that time, look at threats and how they relate to the OSI model and stuff, and that there will give you some of the most valuable information you will ever need. There are a lot of free resources. Like I think ProfessorMesser.com, he offers the entire network, CompTIA Network Plus and Security Plus courses for free on his website, full courses on video format. That's a great place to start. If you can start there, you would have the fundamentals to branch out into anything. Another free resource, there is the Cyber Mentor on YouTube. I think he has a 15-hour class on practical ethical hacking or something like that. And he actually gives you really nice walkthrough. So he goes into a little bit of programming with Python, but then goes into all the phases of ethical hacking, penetration testing, and you develop that skill set. Once you develop that skill set, then I would say you can look into maybe getting some sort of certification. Excuse me. It doesn't really matter what certification you do, but because the skill set is what matters. I know a lot of people with so many letters behind their name, but if you actually try to get them onto a machine and do a pen test and load up Kali, run things like basic stuff like Metasploit and these things we have for pen testing, it's difficult for them. So the skill and the skill set is what matters way more than the certification. Unfortunately, the world that we live in, everyone wants to see some sort of certification. The certified ethical hacker is one of the certifications that can carry you from, let's say, a fundamental to intermediate and advanced level. There's also things like the OSCP, right, that you can try out. But whatever cert you decide to pursue, make sure it's recognized. Do a search on Indeed and LinkedIn, Monster, and make sure you actually see companies actually looking for these certs. Don't just do a certification just because it sounds good and you think you might be interested. Look at the actual value. And the reason why I'm saying this is because these certs are very expensive. And you'll find that some of them have nothing to do with technical. They're all about just risks and risk management and stuff. But some of them are regarded as some of the highest cybersecurity qualifications in the world. So again, develop your skill sets, see where you want to go, see where you want to be, do a cert that will help you get there. but do a cert that's recognized, not just because a company advertises it and says, this is the number one cert or this is a great cert. Do some research for yourself, right? But if you're just beginning, I definitely recommend the Network Plus and the Security Plus. Even if you have a IT degree in IT programming, whatever it is, skim through those videos. I'm not saying you have to do the exam or take a formal course, right? You have a lot of free resources available to you. But start there and spend a lot of time on TCP/IP, the OSI model, ports, protocols, attacks that can happen at each layer. And from there, you realize that it's all connected, and it will actually be a lot easier from you at that point to identify where you would like to be.
Oh, sorry, yeah, my audio seemed to froze for a minute. Am I back?
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much for that comprehensive advice. So I'm wondering, in terms of career planning, because when I try to give advice to students in terms of careers, I try to help them really understand the path to get to certain branches. And it's not like someone out of university with 0 years experience could probably get like a database or network admin. And what I typically see is people start within the IT field and they would work in networking, they would work near network admin. And then when they get the years experience, then they could kind of get into cybersec or whatnot. Is that what you see as well?
Unfortunately, locally, yes. If you are in one of those developed foreign countries, you can, do a couple cybersecurity courses and get a job straight out of completion of that certification. But locally in Trinidad and regionally, yes, it's usually that you build up your career in something on networking, or if you want to start off as a programmer or something like that. But yeah, you do build up, especially for the IT students. Most of them start off as networking technicians, or then work their way up to administrators or network or systems admin, and then from there you become a security. And honestly, that's not a bad path. That's generally how it is, even included for myself. I did it exactly like that as well. But the thing is, don't get stuck. It's really, really easy to get stuck in a position. And when I say stuck, I mean that you are there, you're just trying to fight down with dealing with the company, maybe with a boss that may not be too great, an environment that may be a bit toxic from time to time. Those are things that I think we all have to go through. But make the time to promote yourself in terms of to upskill, right? Try and do maybe one certification a year. If you would like to sign up and do a master's degree, please, by all means, do a master's degree, because first degrees now are almost the same as CAPE, because you're really realizing that everybody has a first degree, right? Which unfortunately means that you now have to go and try and do some certifications. Interestingly enough, I have seen persons that have no degree, no first degree, but they do have certifications like Microsoft certifications and Cisco certifications in particular. And they do end up getting well-paying technical job, administrative jobs just with those certs as well. So I'm not saying that a degree is a waste of time, because whatever you learn, it's only to your benefit. It will carry you very far. A degree does teach you, a bit of thinking on your own and researching on your own as well. So that will always be helpful to you. But for those of you who are struggling down there in particular, try to get jobs in particular, because the job market is very limited right now, very saturated also, I would say. Have a look into those, some of those Microsoft Cloud certs, Google Cloud certs, Amazon, even the Cisco. There's a very popular certification, the Cisco Certified Network Associate. That is very much in high demand, and that's the one I was talking about, where I've had a lot of students who have done the course, passed the exam, and gotten jobs just with CCNE. So it will start off at maybe a technician salary, but you move up very, very quickly with CCNA certification. If you have your degree plus CCNA, it'll only add the value to it. So yes, it's a good way to work yourself up, get that experience. Lab up, definitely get your lab going. You cannot get into cybersecurity, forensics, networking, hardcore level, that is, if you don't lab up, like whether it be virtual or if you buy used equipment from eBay or something like that, some friends help you out. that's fine. If you would like to start from scratch in cybersecurity, sign up for tryhackme.com. It's free. You can sign up for free. It's an excellent resource for beginners in particular. So you have a lot of ways that you can still get that experience without even having the work experience, right? Because right now I know a lot of even teachers that are trying to get into cybersecurity and networking, and this is the same advice that I give to them. A couple of them have made it out so far, but you have to push yourself and know where you want to get certified. Like if you want to get the CCNA or Cloud Cert, Microsoft, AWS, Google, whatever it may be. But make that time. Skip a couple of those Netflix episodes per day, and yeah, just put in that hour or two.
Yes, I definitely agree with that sentiment in terms of the importance of the certifications. Typically, if students come to me and they really want to get that network admin, any of the higher levels, network admin, database admin, this stuff, I will tell them, okay, your degree is great, but you really go into certs because they're going to give you the actual practical
Yeah.
experience and the actual tools used in industry, because degrees are really good in that they're wide and they help you kind of get a start into different fields. But so it's really taking in depth, allow you to specialize. So I was really
Mhm.
interested when you mentioned master's degree, because given that kind of trade-off between the degree and the certifications, where you see, the utility of a master's, and when do you think someone or a master's would be good or a good fit for someone?
So that's great because that's exactly what I did. I did not do a first degree. I was head on into certifications when I started off in IT. Um, I think I was a teenager and just decided to jump into the CompTIA stuff, the fundamental stuff, A plus, Net plus, Security plus. And I spent a lot of time doing certs because after that I went into the CCNA and then the Certified Ethical Hacker Forensics. At that time, though, everything was GATE approved. But because everything was GATE approved, every single person was doing a degree.
Right.
So my thing was that certs allow me to get a lot more money in terms of a salary. So I'll just stick with the certs. And after a while, I realized that I could have the certs and specialize in it to the point where I want to be a consultant, which is how I decided to open my company. But in order for you to be a consultant, of course, you have to specialize in this field. So that's why I decided to do a master's in network security. So having a master's degree in network security now allowed me to say, okay, well, I'm at a higher level, I guess, in terms of when you look at the modules covered, the thesis, the research that you have to put in, and it's what I when I did my research, what really moved me to doing the masters is that the masters opened a lot more opportunities in terms of even if you're applying for an admin job, right, like a network or sysadmin, you have a masters that would help your chances greatly, right, because your knowledge should be a bit advanced over the first degree. But the research that I did in general showed that when people are looking for subject matter experts, which would be the consultants, if you have that master's degree, it greatly enhances your chances of getting put out there. And immediately after I did my master's, that company, Pact Publishing, they reached out to me to ask if I wanted to do a couple books for them, and that's how I ended up doing 4 books. And then thanks to the master's degree, because of the consultancies as well, the master's degree would have played a big part in it because I did this master's degree maybe about 10 years ago. I mean, it's quite popular now, but back then, 10 years ago, there weren't many people with a master's degree in network security at all. So it really is, again, up to you to choose something that is recognized, that is good. If you are looking at migrating, look at your options outside. Don't just look at the local ones as well. I mean, yes, they are quite expensive, but usually you can find a way somehow. Just make sure that it's recognized out there, right? So that if you decide to go out to migrate to one, even to the Caribbean or something like that, it's from a recognized institution. Don't only look at the modules. Unfortunately, you do have to look at the name of and whether it's recognized as well. You have some universities, they offer you so many modules, it's so intense and stuff, but if you look at their rating, they may not be as up there as others, and then you have to consider the competition. So you have to look at marketability and marketing yourself as well out there, not only what is something that you may want to do. You will get there eventually if you put things in place, but there's also that side of the game that you have to play. So make sure you do things that are a bit recognized, that could allow you to get external opportunities as well. That was one of the reasons why I decided to opt for a foreign master's degree, and I have to say it's worked well in my favor because I do have foreign consultancies as well, because they do recognize these universities outside. So in that sense is what I mean by, make yourself marketable so that you're not just confined to the local and the regional spaces.
Right, excellent, excellent. Well, we've been talking for quite a while, and I want to bring it to a close. Shiva, thank you so much for being part of the DevFest this year. Welcome to the DevFest and sharing your expertise and so much resources. Are there any closing thoughts you'd like to share with the audience?
Um, Honestly, try to stay sane, guys. There's so much to do, so much to learn in IT, but have a plan. Have a plan where you would want to be. If you get into something now, ask yourself a question. Can you see yourself managing a team of, whether it be developers, IT staff, whatever field that you are into or would you like to get into? Can you see yourself managing a team of these like-minded individuals in 5 to 10 years from now? If the answer is yes, and you realize that you may have to, of course, improve and develop on your managerial skills, awesome, that can come in time. If the answer is no, I would advise you to not take things so seriously. Try to have something redundant. Honestly, to anyone, I would never advise that you go headfirst only into what your field is. Diversify a little bit, get some backup skills. We have the internet, we have AI, we have everything at our fingertips. The world is honestly yours. It really is your oyster, right? But look at where you want to be in 5 to 10 years. If you can think you can manage a team of yourself in 5 to 10 years, awesome. Keep going with it. If not, maybe have a look around. But in any case, whether you do, whether you don't, still look at other skill sets out there just in case, because you never know what will happen to the tech industry and developing, and especially with improvements on machine learning and AI. Agriculture is always a plus. But yeah, just don't limit yourselves is what I'm saying. Just keep pushing. Don't limit yourselves. Ignore the noise outside. Focus on yourself. Stay inside. Ignore some of all that noise outside about you should do this, you should do that. If you like stuff and you want to go a little bit further and deeper into it, that's how great things happen, right? So trust yourself, trust your instinct. Try not to take on too many of the voices outside, and you should be fine.
Excellent, really solid advice. So thanks again for joining us, and we will see you all in the next talk.
All right.
All right. That's some first talk, a great talk by Shiva. Really happy to have him and share his expertise with us. That was a pre-recording talk, so it's unfortunately not able to be here to answer your questions. But don't worry, for the remaining speakers of the remaining talks for this event, they will be done live. So if you have any questions from the audience, y'all could go right ahead and place them in the YouTube comments. Okay. So I'm just gonna go right into the next talk. But before I do that, I'll do a bit of a bio. Let me share my screen. Let's see. Right. So our next speaker is Akil Hussain. He is a recent computer science master's graduate from Florida Institute of Technology. He went there to further his knowledge in machine learning and artificial intelligence and get opportunities to work in that field. So without further ado, I welcome Akil to the stage. All right. Hi, Akil. How are you doing?
Hey, Nicholas, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for the introduction.
All right. So, can you talk a bit about what you studied? I mean, you said AI and
Yeah.
artificial AI and ML, but how was your experience studying abroad, especially given that you are a UE student for your undergrad
Right.
and you had that experience of going across, to further your studies?
Yeah. Well, like you said, starting at UWE, I did my bachelor's there, and that was my environment I was used to growing up in Trinidad, and so moving to UWE was a very normal step. And then taking the leap into the masters in a foreign country was very interesting, um, but very rewarding as well, giving me that different perspective, the way different people see problems, the way the people around me think. It was very insightful, and to address the type of work that I did, or the type of studies I did, focusing in on machine learning. So I took classes like neural networks, general AI classes, and machine learning classes, stuff on images, image transformations, and very heavy technical work, a lot of math. Funny enough, not as much programming as you'd expect doing a computer science master's, but a great perspective all around, and really helped me to think about ML and AI in a new way, how to research better, all these things.
Awesome, awesome. So without further ado, we could go ahead. Let's try. You could try sharing your screen.
Yeah, sure.
No, we'll get that.
I'll just share my entire screen to make it a bit easier to deal with. Oh, okay, this works. You let me know if this is all right.
Yeah, we could enter presenter view.
Oh yeah, are you seeing the main view or the presenter
Yeah,
view?
I'm seeing the main view, like all the slides and stuff.
Okay, so I could present from here.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right. Take
All
it.
right.
But it isn't full screen yet, though.
Oh, sorry, it's not.
No, I'm seeing like the other slides.
Oh, on the side, I see what you're saying.
I think sometimes it switches.
Is this any better?
Not seeing a difference. Okay.
Let me try again. If not, I think I know what we could do. Is this any better?
I'm still seeing everything, but if you're okay to proceed,
Um, okay, I
let
think
me sure.
I could really quickly share my whole screen, and that might remedy the
Okay.
problem.
No problem, no problem. So you said you did a lot of not as much coding as you expected.
Yeah, that was the funny thing, you hear computer science, and the first thing that comes to your mind is, okay, we're gonna be coding, we're gonna be programming, and then I get there and I'm just doing math, I'm doing
Stats.
differential equations, I'm doing all these integrations, stuff that I never even heard of before. And I was definitely surprised, but thankfully, my bachelor's in UE prepared me for it, so I wasn't blown out of the water.
Awesome. That's great to hear.
Yeah. But for all my computer scientists out there, I understand dealing with all the math and everything.
Okay, yep. Looks
Okay,
like
great.
we're good to go. Take it away.
All right. Um, you can let me know if it's changing slides properly.
Yep.
Is that the case, Nicholas?
Yep. Looks good.
Okay, great. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me on to present my work here today. The very long, extensive title I gave this project, or I gave this work, is A Leveled Mentorship Approach to Genetic Algorithms for the Traveling Salesman Problem. And I assure you, it will be a lot less complex than the title. So I got the inspiration to do this project when I was in my last semester of my master's. I was taking a machine learning course, and funny enough, in the last month of it, my professor told us our final project would be look at all of the techniques, methods, algorithms that we did, and just come up with a novel approach, something that you've researched and you haven't seen anything on it. And At the time, I thought that was a very big ask given 1 month left, and we had to code up an entire solution, novel, and hopefully show that works. And my first thought was to look at genetic algorithms. Genetic algorithms, I'll get into exactly what it is soon, but the understanding of it is very simple. It mimics our society, it mimics the evolutionary process. And so I thought that was very easy to understand. And why I thought this project was extremely interesting was that I applied knowledge of very practical societal things I know to create an algorithm and compare it against the algorithm that I learned in the book, as well as other resources. So I'll start here with the introduction. And this is the introduction to the traveling salesman problem first. So what is the traveling salesman problem? It's a straightforward way of representing a graph problem. And it asks a question, if you have a list of cities and the distance between each pair, what's the shortest path you can take that will visit each city exactly one time and then return from where you started? So given this diagram here, say we started at city A, the idea would be to visit every one of the other cities only one time and then get back to A. So this involves not passing through C a second time, even though it might seem shorter. And in the reality, this is something that we've all done, especially, if you drive, you say you have a list of tasks to do. I have to go to the mall to pick something up. I have to drop documents off, pay a bill, grab something to eat. And so you won't ping pong back and forth between the furthest thing and then drive the furthest distance again to do something else. You typically want to visit or do all your tasks in an order that makes sense. If they're all along the way, then why not? And so that's a way to see the traveling salesman problem. And that type of problem could be applied to, that general idea could be applied to networking, hardware optimization, even job scheduling. And the idea is just how can we do all these tasks in the most efficient order? And we can apply that in many ways. So moving on from the traveling salesman problem, we look at genetic algorithms. So like I mentioned before, this mimics like an evolutionary process, what we might know as natural selection. Everyone's familiar with that. We start with an initial population of people or individuals. And in the case of our problem, the traveling salesman problem, we see these individuals as solutions to the problem. So every individual in our population is a solution to our traveling salesman problem. Then we select a group of the fittest individuals, which in evolution is the individuals that are most likely to survive. Then those individuals that survive create offspring that survive and then continue on to the next generation. So we have a cycle of a population. We move into them being selected based on how fit they are. And the ones that survive create children, offspring, and then sometimes these offspring experience mutation, which we'll come to a bit later on. And this process continues over and over and over. We all live in part of that cycle. Oh, sorry, let me go back here. Just one note that in the genetic algorithm process, we have what we consider three main stages. The three main stages are selection, which is that process of choosing fit individuals, crossover, which is the idea of making offspring, and then mutation, which is that rare occurrence of mutation in genes, that kind of thing that happens across all species. And this process takes from the idea that more fit solutions create offspring that learn from the highly fit parents, which create even fitter children, and so on, so continuing on each generation. So my work was around making a new method to select fit individuals and how they should create offspring. So the first thing I did was look at a few methods of selection that was given already in the books that I read. The major book that I read was one simply called Machine Learning by Tom Mitchell, and his algorithm used the generic genetic algorithm process, where individuals are probabilistically selected. So based on how fit they are, they're given a probability, and then we choose individuals based on that probability. They call it the roulette wheel selection, mainly because we take all the individuals and you could imagine them on a roulette wheel. And as you spin that wheel, it lands on an individual. And of course, the more fit you are, the wider your slot on this roulette wheel is. And so the more likely you are to be selected. Another method, and honestly, the most exciting method and my favorite method outside of mine, of course, is the tournament selection method. This takes a group of individuals and randomly selects them, and then it pits them in a one-on-one fight based on their fitness. And the stronger or more fit individual moves on to the next generation. And this could take a lot of different forms. We could have a tournament and say the top 3 contestants move forward to the next generation, and then we take another group and do the same thing. Or we just compare one against the other, and the fitter one moves forward, just like a tournament. This is a nice implementation because it's more likely to see that some individuals who aren't as fit as the best individuals still have a chance to make it through the next generation. And you might ask yourself, why would I want an unfit person or an unfit individual in the next generation? I only want the best of the best. And the reason why you would do that is because it's important to have a diverse population. And that idea of diversity, I'll get back into soon. Finally, we have the linear rank selection. And this sees individuals ranking from 1 going down to how many individuals you have. And it chooses the individuals proportional to their rank. So rather than having a number of fitness, say 10, 20, 1,000, a million, we just look at the most fit. We say, okay, he's number 1. The second most fit is number 2. And then we proportionally select them based on that. So this sees that extremely fit individuals don't just blow less fit individuals out to the water, out of the selection process for our next population. And this again promotes diversity. So going back into the idea of diversity, it's important in a population to be diverse because even though an individual may not be the most fit, they might still have a good idea. And if we take that individual with a good idea and cross them over with a highly fit individual, we might come to find solutions that would not have been found if we only stuck with very similar individuals that were highly ranked. So with that said, I will move into my approach, the level mentorship approach. And in this approach, we'll see some modifications to the operations, namely the crossover and the mutation. Then we'll move into the leveled section, the regular crossover section, and then the mentored crossover section. So in reality, my approach focuses mainly on this leveled selection and mentored crossover part, but the regular crossover is also there, taking inspiration from previous methods. Okay, so now getting into our approach, the first thing we need to do is look at how we represent our solutions. In genetic algorithms, solutions typically look like a string of bits, 1s and 0s, and these 0s and 1s represent particular values in our solution. So let's say we were trying to predict the weather today, if it would rain or not. We're trying to play tennis today, and we want to know, is today a good day to play tennis? So looking at the 2 strings at the top, we take a small section of that string, and based on the bits, we can say, okay, these 3 bits represent the temperature. If it's all ones, that means it's cold. If it's the sequence 110, that means it's warm, and we could use this to represent multiple values. This is how you create a typical solution for genetic algorithms. Then, if we are trying to cross over these two parents that are on the left to create two children which are on the right, what we do is we take a small section and we swap them between the individuals, and that creates new, usually unique children or offspring. And that's represented in the gold numbers there. So the first gold string is swapped with the bottom, and the bottom swapped with the top. And that's how we typically do crossover. Mutation is also very simple. We just select a bit and we flip that bit. So if it was a 1, we change it to a 0, and a 0, we change it to a 1. We know the crossover represents the offspring creating children and moving on to the next generation. And mutation also very rarely occurs. And so in this algorithm, mutation is a very, very small chance to occur, but it can still happen. And this helps to create an idea of exploration, exploring new ideas and new solutions that we might not have come up with if we only stuck to crossover. Now, in the representation for the traveling salesman problem, we can't use a string of bits, a string of ones and zeros. Rather, we use an order of the cities that we visit. So given the string 3 to 1, that means we start at city 3, we move to city 2, then to 1, and then back to 3. If we use the typical method of crossover, we can potentially end up with duplicates. As you might see here, if we again swap those 3 yellow numbers, those 3 yellow numbers, in the top right, we see that the individual has 2 3s, and that violates the idea that we can only visit a city once. If we move from city 3 to 2 to 4 to 6 and 3, we're visiting 3 multiple times in that sequence, and so that breaks out of the constraints that we have. Similarly to mutation, in the previous representation, we could flip a bit from 0 to 1, 1 to 0, but we don't have the luxury of simply flipping one of our numbers to another random number. Say we flipped a 7 to a 4, then immediately we see that we have the duplicate 4, and that again breaks our constraints. We only need to be able to visit a city once. So we need to tweak these operations ever so slightly to facilitate our new representation. So first, let's look at the crossover. To fix this, we use something called partially mapped crossover. And what this does, this makes us take the parents and make copies of them. We then grab our subpath, which is highlighted in yellow, and we turn those into a map, where 1 is now mapped to 4, 7 mapped to 6, and 4 mapped to 3. This works the other way around as well. So for another child, it will map from 4 to 1, 6 to 7, 3 to 4. Then we cross over the subpaths similarly to how we did before. We just flip them between the 2 parents to create our new offspring. Then we go through each value of that new offspring. And if it contains any value we have in our map, then we change it to the appropriate value. So if we compare the 2 strings at the bottom, we see that for the most part, the strings look similar to what we would expect. But as soon as we approach the number 7, we realize that there would have been a duplicate. And so what we need to do now is go into our lookup table, our mapping table, and we say, okay, 7 maps to 6. We will now change that 7 in the string at the bottom left to a 6. And then we move forward again, and we run into the number 1. Now we say 1 is in the mapping table, so we move 1 to a 4. But now 4 is in the mapping table as well, so we move 4 to a 3. And that's how we end up with that string in the bottom right, our new fixed offspring. So that helps us to do that crossover without duplicates. Next, we look at mutation. Again, we weren't afforded the luxury of just changing a value to a random other value. So what we do is we use insertion mutation, and that's simply just taking that slice or that number, and we just move it to another path in or another slot in our string. So now where we would have a string of cities that goes from 3 to 2 to 1 to 7, now moves from 3 to 2 to 1 to 4, and 7 comes later on. And this gives us a lot of flexibility too, if we wanted to take more than just one part of our string. We could take 2, 3. It's very flexible that way. Now we move into the actually applying all of these steps now. And we do this is the level section. So this method of selection, it aims to prioritize fitter individuals, but what it also does is it guarantees a decent representative of different ranges of fitness, which should help with our diversity. So, of course, you can see the representation with upper level, middle level, lower level, or lower class, and this is something we're very familiar with, where a lot of times the upper level are more likely to move forward, and then proportionally less for the middle and lower levels. So what happens is we separate a number of our individuals into upper, middle, and lower class. The upper class being the most fit and going down. For each class, we use a method called the roulette wheel selection again to pick a number of individuals in each class. So before we would randomly or probabilistically choose from our entire population. And so this might see a lot of very fit individuals being chosen and maybe no individuals from the bottom end of our population. But in this selection method, we take a few probabilistically from the upper level, a few from the middle, and a few from the lower. So you can see that it guarantees that there's an individual or a solution to represent each class. And this gives us a bit of diversity. Next, I would have taken a group of individuals and applied our regular crossover. This is just similar to what was initially shown. And this is similar to the method given in the Tom Mitchell book, where a portion of the population is just used for typical crossover, and this produces our offspring. Finally, we look at the mentored crossover. This is another novel approach that I would have taken. So rather than randomly selecting or probabilistically selecting 2 individuals or 2 parents from our population, what I did was I adopted the idea of schools or maybe societies, villages, where the smartest individuals, which would be teachers in schools, would pass on their knowledge to less fit individuals or individuals that don't know as much, and or even societies where the strongest of a tribe, let's say, they have a lot more suitors or a lot more people that they would have that offspring with. And so this would perpetuate that the fitter individuals match with those that are less fit to help create a nice average base for us. So what I did was sort the population based on their fitness. We select a few, let's say 5, 10, any number of the most fit individuals, and those were mentors. Then the rest of the population that are not included in the mentors are the students. Then we take one parent from the mentors, one parent from the students, and we apply crossover there to create a new population. So after going through those stages in the genetic algorithm process, the selection, the crossover and the mutation, this was repeated for about 500 generations. I would have used a population size of 300 individuals, first starting with 1,000 random individuals, 1,024 random individuals, and then selecting a population of 300, which would go from generation to generation over and over for 500 generations. And to evaluate how well each solution did, or evaluate how well our approach did compared to the approach of the book and also the approach of the tournament selection, we would take a visual look at the path that was created. We would look at the best fitness across each generation. We look at our average fitness over each generation, and an algorithm I created called the diversity score, which tries its best to get an idea of how diverse the population is in each solution. So we compare those three solutions, the book method, tournament method, and the leveled mentorship method over 500 generations, and that was done in 3 iterations. So for the results you've been waiting for, these are what the paths would have looked like. Now, let's focus on the left. We have the mapped path for a file that we'll call 1 through 1, which basically means there were 131 points, and the objective was to find the most or the optimal path to go through those. Now, in the top left, you will see the optimal path. This was found by researchers using the most optimal techniques and different ideas in their algorithms, much more complex algorithms. And they found this to be the best path so far that anyone has found. Now, of course, compared to that, our methods look very jumbled and scrambled. But to give the context here, this was run for a very small number of generations with a small population size and not using as many methods and techniques as the most optimal path. And this was solely for the idea of experimenting with that leveled mentorship idea, and adding in different methods and ideas could come to find closer to the optimal path quicker. Or given more generations, our algorithms could have found the optimal path or close to the optimal path. So in the top left is the best path. The top right is the method of the book by Tom Mitchell. The method in the left is the tournament method. And in the bottom right is the level mentorship method. Again, very scrambled. And I will show you something a bit less scrambled that was run over 3,000 generations instead. But just visually, you can get an idea that the book method in the top right was a bit more scrambled than the 2 methods at the bottom. And from looking at the numbers in the graph soon, we'll see that the level mentorship method performed better than all these other methods over multiple generations, over multiple iterations. As well, to address the picture on the right as well, this is just a path or a mapping with 237 nodes. So a bit more complex. And of course, the same amount of generations is not sufficient for something more complex. But you can see how well it did in the limited time that I gave it. So moving on to our results. So we have, this is the best fitness per generation. So over our 500 generations that we run it, we measured the best fitness, or the individual with the best fitness in every generation. They all start from the same point because they all share the same population. The line in blue is the method of the book. The line in orange is the tournament method, and the green is my novel approach. We can see that even starting from the same place, the leveled mentorship method beats out the other 2 methods very quickly. And even looking at the book method compared to the leveled mentorship idea, it's the leveled mentorship approach has the best fitness about 300, 400 generations compared to the book method. So if we take the best fitness of the book method at the end of the 500 generations, we find that the approach that I had that fitness 500 or 400, sorry, 400 generations, almost 400 generations before it. And moving on to the average fitness, we see a similar trend where both methods taper down very quickly compared to the book method. But again, 400 generations before, it was finding better, more fit ideas and solutions. Similarly, for the tournament method compared to my method, um, it found a similarly strong approach 300 generations before and continued to find better and better. And so running it for longer generations would prove it to find better solutions. Quickly going through, these are the results, just the numbers of the best fits, best fitness, average fitness, and the diversity score. I won't linger on this too long because I do have the results of running this method over 3,000 generations. So here we have it. We see that they all kind of, uh, well, not plateau, but run off and become very stable. The fitness of each one starts to become very stable. But we see the disparity between the different methods here in the best fitness and the average fitness. And going back to our path or 131 path, you see that in the bottom right, my method was getting very close to finding something very similar to the optimal approach in the top left. So, in the conclusion, this project was aimed to provide a new approach to the selection of fit individuals and as well as making a very intentional choice on the parents rather than random or probability to give that idea of diversity while still being a strong approach. And it was shown to perform better than standard approaches and tournament selections. And I think this approach paired with other ideas and techniques could prove to be a lot faster than the standard approaches or even different approaches. So thank you very much for listening. And I guess this is where we'll have any questions.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much for that really, academic, scientific level presentation. I want to make sure I get it straight. So, genetic algorithm kind of works by guessing a family of solutions. It would measure them, and they would use those solutions to breed a next generation of other solutions. The idea being that hopefully the fit ones will pass on the properties that make them good to the next generation. And I think when I studied this, we know roulette wheel selection is when you randomly decide who the parent's gonna be.
Right.
And the tournament ones just you just take the fittest ones.
Yeah.
And what you did was say, okay, well, we have some fit ones, but we probably don't want to just use only the fit ones because you might overfit. You might just adopt a strategy that's common to all of them that might work good now, but mightn't be as so
Mhm.
good like later down the line. So you're crossing some of the fit ones with the not so fit ones for the next generation, right?
Right, exactly.
Right, yeah.
Especially emphasis on that idea of overfitting where we have a group of solutions and they all have this one mindset of okay,
Approach.
this is how we do it, they're all very similar. You fall into a trap of all these individuals thinking okay, this is the best way to do it and we can't
Mhm.
see any other way.
Essence.
And it helps us escape that idea and try something new, and then we find okay, this is better.
That's so interesting that this idea of diversity came in because that's one of the things that we strive for in DevFest events. Try to get a diversity of thoughts, to get a diversity of opinions when we come across these problems that we face in the region. So Akil,
Mhm.
that really takes us about to the end of our time we have. Do you have any last words to share advice to students maybe considering studying away in their masters, might be interested in AI?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say everyone thinking about it, everyone, of course, if you have the means to do so, I highly suggest to do that because it gives you the opportunity to step out your comfort zone. And that was a lot of the reason I decided to do it. I thought if I just stayed where I felt comfortable, it would hinder my learning, or it would hinder my ability to, have that confidence to do different things. And it's very rewarding to be able to go out and learn that kind of thing, and to be able to come back to Trinidad and share that type of knowledge, and uh, bring it back into the pool here to build on it. So I would say everybody, if you're thinking about it and you can, I think it's a great idea. And it might seem hard in it, but you could find very interesting solutions, very interesting ideas, and you might outperform what you think of yourself. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being part of the DevFest, Hakeem.
Thanks for having me, Nicholas. I appreciate it.
Great. See ya. All right. So on to our next talk. We have Jade Ganga, who is a data analyst at Darwin Limited. And she currently works with Power BI. She has a passion for helping clients achieve maximum benefit and use their data by extracting actionable insights that can help them make more informed business decisions, as well as further improve their business. She enjoys applying her knowledge and experience and has gained thus far real experience she has gained thus far to real world problems, exploring and learning about new trends and technologies in the data industry. So, welcome, Jade.
Hello. Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you for having me here today.
Oh, of course, of course. Welcome to the DevFest. So, you are a recent graduate at university, right?
Yes, I am. Officially would have graduated in October of this year.
Awesome, awesome. And so, yeah, and you work as data analyst. Can you just talk a bit about what a data analyst does?
Sure. So a data analyst is responsible for taking a client's data and from that helping them to achieve the maximum use they can get from that. So not only do we help to give them pretty visualizations that they can enjoy looking at, but we give them visualizations that allow them to very easily see things that they may not notice just looking at like tables of data. They can see trends over time. They could see things that can help them to boost their business or make better decisions to keep customers or bring in new customers and so on.
Great, great. So, without further ado, we'll let you get right to it. Can you try sharing your screen?
Okay, sure. Just let me know if you are seeing my slides, please.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, let's add that onto the stage so you can take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you. Every day, approximately 2.5 quintillion bytes of data are created globally. Data analysts and data enthusiasts should see navigating this vast ocean of data as a thrilling challenge and an opportunity to uncover valuable insights. As a data analyst myself, I have had to apply these skills to both my personal and professional life. In fact, even before becoming a data analyst. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jade Ganga, and it is my pleasure and honor to have this opportunity to speak to you all about my journey into the local tech industry, more specifically, my journey thus far into becoming a data analyst. From an early age, technology has fascinated me, and the immense power associated with having expertise in the field seemed otherworldly. I'd say this is where my passion for technology stemmed from. I am a past student of Naparima Girls High School, where I pursued IT at both the CSEC and CAPE levels. I later went on to pursue my Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science at the University of the West Indies, and I am proud to say that I recently graduated with upper second honors and am currently working at a gold certified company called Davin Limited. Now let's get into the journey that got us to this point. This journey has by no means been smooth. It has been riddled with bumps, roadblocks, and numerous side roads and detours. Throughout my journey, I have experienced numerous disappointments and challenges, both in my personal life and my quote unquote professional life. At the start of my journey, I didn't know that I'd find my passion in data. Everyone tells you to follow your passion, but what if you don't know what that is just yet? For me, I didn't have a clue as to what my passion would be, and for the longest while, I had no idea how to even find my passion. But my being here today is testimony to seeing that that's okay. When I started out, all I knew was that I wanted to be in the tech industry. I didn't have a clue as to what exactly I wanted to be, just that it had to be tech related and that my career had to be in the tech industry. If we look at what I would say was the start of a train wreck of disappointments, we'd see a young student anxiously awaiting for their CSEC results with the hopes of getting all ones and a medal of achievement from her school. Alas, this student was disappointed to realize that she didn't meet the requirements for said medal and she didn't get all ones either. From here came uncertainty. I wasn't sure that I'd even be accepted back into my school for keep, which puts my entire future into question, or at least the plans that I had. So, how did I deal with that uncertainty? Well, I spoke to the adults around me and I let them know how I was feeling and I asked for their advice. And out of that came the decision to try applying to other schools for keep. So, leaning on the ever trustworthy University of Google, I did my research and I found out what documents I'd need to apply as well as which schools would be able to offer me the subjects that I wanted to pursue. After that, I found myself in my school's office where the office staff informed me that my principal said I wouldn't need to be applying elsewhere for keep. Needless to say, they didn't give me any documents to apply, so I never really did get to try that process. This is also the moment that I made a decision that would change my life once again. You see, Cape IT wasn't in my plans. I wanted to achieve an open scholarship so that I could study abroad. And as such, I intended to pursue chemistry instead because I thought that that was a better route to getting that scholarship. On that day, in my school's office, I wrote a letter to my principal asking to switch into IT instead. And so began my CAPE experience. If we fast forward to the day that I got my CAPE results for Unit 1, I am proud to say that I got all ones. And so I thought, this might be the right track. Achieving that open scholarship just might be possible after all. And if it's possible, then maybe I should start applying to foreign universities. So I decided I wanted to study in Canada. And I began applying to 2 universities in Canada. But this journey would be where we strike yet another bout of disappointment. I was rejected by one of the universities, my dream university actually. And to make matters worse, my best friend was accepted for the same program that I applied to at my dream school. I was disappointed and I was sad for myself, but I was absolutely elated for my best friend. She deserved it and she was super happy as well. And I mean, at least I had a silver lining, right? I still had to hear back from the second university I applied to. Little did I know that this would be yet another uphill battle. The university needed more details about Cape IT in order to determine if it would satisfy their entry requirements and if I would be granted an offer or not. And when I found this out, I wondered to myself if I should have chosen IT at all. Maybe I should have stuck with chemistry in the first place. But after much back and forth with that Canadian university and an advisor from the university, I was able to finally get a decision and I had been accepted and I would receive some funding as well. I was advised by my teachers and my family that just in case I should apply to some local universities too. So I decided that I would apply to the University of the West Indies because it's an internationally recognized and accredited university with some of the most brilliant lecturers. So I began that process. And it was shortly after this that the COVID 19 pandemic hit and everything went completely haywire. We were all locked down, we were all at home, and we were all now doing classes online. There was so much uncertainty, we didn't even know what would happen to our CAPE Unit 2 exams, let alone scholarships. And as a result of that uncertainty and the delayed time it took to find out what was happening, I was forced to decline my offer from the university. Soon after that, I was forced to make yet another decision. Would I take a gap year to wait for scholarship results and based on those results decide if I would be applying again to a foreign university and see how the pandemic was going, or should I just accept that offer from the University of the West Indies and start immediately? Someone close to me made that decision very easy though. I was asked, well, what would you do in the gap year? And unfortunately, I did not have an answer because I hadn't thought that there would be a pandemic and that circumstances would change so drastically. So I began my university journey in September 2020 in a way unlike anyone else. I'd be attending virtual university. During my 2 years of online university, as I fondly refer to it, personal tragedies took place. I found out that I, in fact, did not receive a scholarship, and even more tragic, my father died. Now, I was raised in a single parent household, but I knew my father, and his death came as a surprise. Not too long after that, I found out about something called national bursaries, which is basically another form of scholarships, and this would help significantly with university costs, especially considering that there were now rumors that we'd be going back out to classes in person. Unfortunately, I did not apply during the first round of applications for those bursaries. But thankfully, God smiled and there was a second round of applications. So this time I did in fact apply with the support of my mom, my family, my best friend, and her family. This application process proved to be yet another challenging experience with a lot of uncertainty as well. But nevertheless, I pushed through and I was a successful applicant. During this time, though, I was also pursuing my university courses and dealing with my father's death. So there was a lot going on, and the semester was rough. Unfortunately, this semester would be the time that I failed my very first course, and it was mandatory for me to graduate. As a result of that rough semester and that failed course, my grades and my GPA plummeted. The next semester would be in person classes, and being from South, I needed to find an apartment and move away from home for a bit. That first semester of in person classes would also be the start of my final year. One of the courses that I took that semester, again mandatory for the success of my graduating from my degree, turned out to be a very challenging course. And it was so challenging that I was walking dangerously close to failure. I was entering my final exam with 19%. And yeah, you heard me right, 1 9. For anyone that knows about the exams at UE, you'd know that if this were a must pass exam, there was no point in even showing up to the final exam because I would have already failed. But how did I deal with this dangerously close to failure experience once again? Well, out of the anxiety and with everything on the line came a desperation. And when I say everything was on the line, I mean my graduating on time and my bursary would be on the line if I was to fail that course. So, with that desperation, I studied like I've never studied before in my entire life, to the point where I don't think I registered when the day turned into night and when morning reached again. But I can happily say that the sacrifice and the determination paid off. I had passed my exam. It would have been nice to have gotten an A. It certainly would have helped my GPA to try to rise from that valley it was in. But C's get degrees too, and sometimes a C is all you need. So we'll take the C and be grateful. This semester was also my introduction to data. I did my very first course in data analytics, and I absolutely enjoyed it. So I would say that despite this semester being so challenging, it was the semester that helped me to find my passion. As you would have noticed by now, my journey has been the definition of a roller coaster ride, with twists and turns at every corner, these loop de loops and these highs and lows that you just can't see coming sometimes. But we're still on a journey. Fast forward to 2023, and this year started off with total tragedy in my personal life. I won't go into details about exactly what happened, but I will say that the circumstances were so grave that I almost needed to take leave of absence from university. The door was closing in on me, rapidly so, and I had just about given up and was ready to just throw in the towel. But right then came the support of my family, my friends, and my lecturers, and they forced that door to remain open so that I could successfully complete my degree. During this time, I also would have been preparing to apply to DCIT's internship program, which, in my opinion, was the start of my success story. For those of you who don't know, DCIT is the Department of Computing and Information Technology at the University of the West Indies. Regarding this internship program, I had my doubts and concerns about applying because my GPA was already low, and my peers with higher GPAs and more impressive grades would also be applying. So, would I even get an interview opportunity? But the support and encouragement from my friends, my lecturers, and my family gave me that push to try despite everything and still submit an application. And thankfully, I did, because out of that application, I received two interviews or callbacks regarding jobs, or rather, I should say, regarding internship opportunities. The first of which, in true Jade fashion, had its hiccups, of course. The interview was on the morning that I had an exam as well, so I needed to balance preparing for the exam as well as for the interview. And I'm just going to take a little sidetrack here and let you all know how I prepared for my interviews. So, to prepare for those interviews, I once again turned to Google and I did my research on the companies as well as trying to get as much information from their websites and their social media pages, and just trying to find resources that could help me to prepare for the interview questions or possible interview questions and what the experience could be like. I also asked around to see if I could find out what the companies were like in terms of their culture and what they did. And if we get back on the journey now, we'll be looking at the morning of the interview. And we'll realize that life really throws you challenges to test your resilience. Because on the morning of that interview, I was not being allowed into the venue for the interview. In fact, I was told that I wasn't even on the list. And despite showing them my confirmation emails and all of my communications with the company, I was redirected to a very long registration line. I followed the given instructions, and whilst waiting in that line, I realized I had too much to risk. If I stayed in that line, I'd potentially miss my interview or reach late and give a bad impression, or I could miss the interview on a whole as well as my exam. So I decided in that moment the best thing that I could possibly do was call the company and explain the situation to them. Thankfully, they answered and they were able to sort out the issue and give me the opportunity to have my interview as scheduled and make it to my exam on time. Unfortunately, though, I didn't hear back from this company. But there was still a silver lining. the callback period for the internship program wasn't completely over, so there was still time and I just needed to keep the faith. By now, you are all probably tired of this roller coaster ride and you probably just would have wanted to get off. But don't worry, so did I. In fact, I came so close to giving up so many times that I could only see the reason that I still tried is because of the support that I got from my lecturers and my friends and my family. And you'll notice that I keep referring to these three groups of people. And that's because, in my opinion, I owe a large part of my success to them. But I promise that this is the part of the story where everything just starts to fall into place. The hard work, the resilience, and the determination finally comes to fruition in a way that was beyond what I could have ever imagined. One day, completely out of the blue and unexpected, I received an interview offer from a company called Davin. I was completely over the moon. Granted, at this point, I didn't fully know who Davin was or what Davin would come to mean to me. All I knew was that I had another shot. Of course, I accepted and I went through the entire process. But it's important to note that whilst going through this second opportunity for an interview, I did my very best to make sure that my past experience of not being called back affect my mentality going into this new opportunity. I had my technical interview, which was the last round of the interview process for Davin, and I was informed that I now needed to wait for a response from the company. Thankfully, the stars aligned and God favored me. Davin was willing to accept me for a 3-month internship, and this would be where my professional journey and experience in our local tech industry began. Davin Limited is a gold certified partner company and has been in the industry for over 20 years. Here, I would be assigned my mentor, Mr. Safania Peters, and my supervisor, Mr. Richard Khan, whom both I credit with making my learning experience and my internship a truly memorable and enjoyable one. So, to them, I just want to say thank you. Mr. Peters was instrumental in helping me to come into and adjust to the work environment, as well as giving me a strong foundation as a data analyst. Mr. Khan has lent his support to me and his advice in everything that I've embarked upon, and he continues to do so. He always encourages me to seize the opportunities that come along. The cloud team, which is my team at Davin, has supported me throughout my internship, and they continue to support and help me grow into my role as I've now joined the company in a full time position. The entire staff at Davin were truly welcoming and supportive of myself and the other interns they took on, and they continue to mold us into exceptional professionals in the industry. As I mentioned earlier and numerous times, I am a data analyst at Davin, and this means that I am responsible for taking data and transforming it into a report that users can not only enjoy looking at and using, but they can also extract meaningful, actionable insights from. At Davin, we utilize foundational software to build and create customized solutions for various clientele that helps them to make their businesses better. To summarize the lessons I've learned thus far on my journey, I would say to you, always try to look for a silver lining. And for those times you really can't find one, remember this. You'll always gain valuable insights from your experiences. Remember your rejections and your failures, but look at them as experiences you've grown from. Don't let them deter you from new opportunities. What is meant for you will always find you. And if a door closes on you, don't worry. Another one will come along and it will open up to something much better, perhaps something you didn't even expect or imagine. I have realized that it's best to take the chance. You never know what good could come from it, and in most cases, the worst that can happen is that it doesn't work out. And in that case, there's a valuable lesson for you to learn from the experience. My journey thus far has been a learning experience, and I continue to learn as I grow into my role at Davin as well as within the tech industry. I've learned that in everything, we must be resilient. And we must always be willing to get back up and try again or keep going. Because we never know if it's just that one more step before we get our victory. Life gets hard, and we may face numerous challenges, difficulties, and disappointments. But I think that I'm proof that despite all the hardships that life may throw at you, and all those curveballs that come out of nowhere, you can make something out of nothing. You can be resilient. You can be strong and you can triumph over all circumstances. I know that we all have different circumstances and that what has worked for me may not work for you, and that my story may not resonate with everybody. But I hope that I have been able to encourage you all to pursue your dreams despite what life throws at you. I ask that if you take nothing else away from my speech, please take this. In everything that you do, try your best, work hard, be resilient, and have faith that things will work out for the best in the end. Let's embrace the challenges and opportunities that life throws at us. And may God grant us the courage to be resilient and strong as we do so. Thank you to everyone for their time and for your attention, and to the organizers of DevFest 2023. I want to say to you, thank you for giving me this opportunity and the honor to share my journey on your stage. Thank you for a truly unforgettable experience. And to anyone interested in learning more or just curious about the data field, please feel free to connect with me via LinkedIn. You can scan the QR code on my slide and it will take you to my profile. Thank you all for your time and attention. Do enjoy the rest of DevFest 2023. And to everyone, I'd like to wish you all happy holidays and season's greetings from my family to yours. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for that talk, Jade. I know that's a really inspirational motivation talk on just on resilience and so much things to really talk about. But mainly, I think you will connect with a lot of students who, many people have many different situations and circumstances, and they might feel like they are only one, that suffered from these things, and they might see their grades falling behind, and they think they won't be a success. But happy that you give your testimony that is really the case.
Yeah, and I just want to say that I was one of those students. I genuinely didn't think that I would get to this point. Like when I saw my GPA, my grades dropping, I was just there like, I don't know how to come back from this.
Yeah, but as you said, you just have to persevere, just finish your degree. That's really the most important thing. Take part in different things, engage in your courses, and I am, for the audience, I am on the internship committee, so I would have worked with these applications. It's the first time I'm hearing that a company schedule an interview or the day of exam. That is not supposed to happen. So
I don't think they were aware of the exam,
exam,
to be
yeah.
quite honest. Yeah.
So
I
that's
think it was a bit unexpected.
Yeah, so that's definitely a hiccup on our side, and we will definitely look out for those things. And any students in the audience looking to take part in internship program, should something like that happen to you, definitely reach out to your coordinators. Okay. And I remember I was also, dealing with the shortlisting, and it was obvious for us to put you all on to put your application on to software engineering roles, because while GP and grades is important, we really look and see how students engage with course content, what's the kind of output they're putting. And when it comes to software engineering, I was particularly impressed with the implementations of your projects and your approach to things. So it's a no-brainer for me to put you on these kind of opportunities. So I'm really glad. I saw you really took it to that, and you really had the personality to kind of fit with the culture. And these are the kind of things that matter.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to add that for the students, definitely take the chance on the internship program despite everything. And also, your relationships with your lecturers are so important because they can give you support that you don't expect, as well as they can give you advice on how to approach the industry. And you may not get like a job from them, but they will give you invaluable advice. And that's just my little piece on the relationship that you should build with your lecturers.
Of course. See, you hear that? Or you listen to your lecturers. All right. So thanks again, Jean.
Thank you for having me.
Also, you're much welcome. So now on to our next talk. Our next speaker is no stranger from DevFest event, so or the GDG platform on the whole. As a matter of fact, he is the organizer of GDG. I hope I pronounce this properly. Guy Kill. But maybe you'll come on later and correct me. So next we have Kevin Morales, who has been an iOS developer in his professional world for over 6 years with Swift. He is also experienced in Android development with some apps with Kotlin and Java. In his spare time, he learns UX and UI, and he's developed some apps for the App Store and Play Store under his name and others where he has added his knowledge. So we're really happy to have Kevin.
Hello, Nicolai. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. It's a pleasure. Thank you for your presentation. And is this Guayaquil?
Guayaquil. Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So can you just talk about a bit of your time in as an organizer of the GBG platform?
No, only for the Guayaquil now. And
Yeah.
this year, I begin the organize that my main role inside the GDG is speaker now.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So you've had, I mean, I know today, so you're already speaking at another DevFest event. Is that correct?
In the last month,
Mm-hmm.
my teammates organized the event in Cuenca, it's a city in
Okay.
Ecuador, in presential. Okay, I tried to in January 2024 to talk about the next year, how it works, the GDGs, everything in Ecuador.
Awesome. And you're here to talk a bit about Android, as I
Yeah.
understand. Awesome. So without further ado, I will let you take it away.
Okay. Hi everyone. Today I will talk about Android architectures. Okay, let's begin. Okay, the agenda is the one point is introducing myself, and the second point, architectures versus design pattern. Next, I will talk about the MVC and the MVVM, the two more architecture useful in Android development. In the next, I will talk about my conclusion, the six point. I talk about the bonus plus and the finish. I can the closing. Okay, who is that guy? Okay, my name is Kevin. I'm a family guy. I really like spend time with my family, with everything, my grandpa, my mom, my wife, my daughter. I try to spend time in my free time because in the week I try to focus my head in the work. Okay. The second image represents the sport because since January I practice the paddle here in Ecuador. Is the export that allow me to lose the weight. And I am a entrepreneur because I love to look for solutions for the problems. In my professional life, I'm working as mobile developer in the company USA, and below to the GDG Guayaquil, I try to organize this moment. My main role is speaker now. Okay, and I have a great project that a gastronomic tourist I invite to download and visit my website menus.com and the little span here and users and the people. If someday you can fly to Ecuador, you can download. Okay, let's talk about the main topic, no? Architectures versus design patterns. Maybe this your face now, no? What is that? Architectures. Okay, the architectures is the for to build the best project with the best practices. Okay, is the way for build a product um, to make more scalability and more useful for the new developments in the team. Okay, I talk about now the MVC model view controller. We can see the flow chart. For example, in the model, you create the object model wherever, maybe the user or the person. In the controller, you can create the actions with the view. Okay, in the view, you implement the buttons, sliders, labels, etc. No, and when you update the model, update the data, and the finish update the view. Okay, is more useful for the beginners developers. Okay, mission passed respect. MVVM is the modern architecture for use for Android development. Google recommended that works with the states. Yeah, we can see the flowchart model and view model and the views. What is the model? It's the same the MVC. The model create a object like a user, etc. The view model, you can programming the logic business. Okay, all controllers is in the views when you can user actions. Yeah, they create the buttons, the labels, the same views in the MVC. Okay, where else? It's very important that architectures there are a networking managers and class for utils and class for colors. All classes you can create in another modules. Yeah. Okay. Mission passed. Design pattern. What is the design pattern? Okay, the design pattern can be classified in the three main categories: creational, structural, and behavioral. Let's to see one structural. Okay, one structural. Maybe your face is that. Creational. Okay, the creational part focus on creating object flexibly and efficiently, like a singleton. Every everything use a singleton when you apply one instance in your project, yeah, and the content one function, whatever function, no matter that. But disadvantage for singleton is when you can implement testing, it's impossible to testing that function. Okay, we can see the flow chart when one instance for all project you can call it this function. Structurals. A structural pattern focus on how objects are composed and organized to form large, more complex and structured. Because adapter. In Android exist the adapters when you create the cells for the recycle view, you need to create an adapter to binding this recycle in the XML. Yeah, this is example for learning the adapter in design patterns. Behavioral, okay? Behavioral pattern focus how objects interact and distribute responsibility among themselves. The main design pattern and using it in ecosystem in Google ecosystem with Kotlin is observer with the state. Yeah, observer is the pattern when you create a variable and this variable subscribe and UI the component. When the UI change, automatically they change the value in the variable. Okay, the advantage and disadvantage these topics is more scalability. They will to be able to have more functionality and the project will remain maintainable. Yeah, avoiding the technical debt is very important. Is avoiding technical debt in the future. Okay, you can create a different model for your functionalities and features. Easy to learn because this exists a lot of documentation in the internet that the difference is the complexity that different architectures in the iOS development, Android development, web development, etc. Okay. The disadvantage, the main disadvantage is first time setup because when you set up your project, you spend time reordering the folders, the classes, and well, okay, you can create the template for classes, but this is time, no, and very important for developer in the company. It's the advantage. Okay, the conclusion. It's used to vast majority of the software and the reuse components, yeah, because you can explain and modules in all projects for reuse components, excellent for beginners that you can create the experience from beginner. Yeah, my advocate advice. I'm sorry. My advice is to create your projects and the proxional projects with the architect because you have a new feature and a new feature for you, for the new company, etc., etc. Okay, and the bonus plus. What is the bonus plus? I will talk about the Jetpack Compose versus UI. Like this image, you can create a one launch screen and 7 lines. You can see that 7 lines in the one image and one label. The label, that example is Jetpack Compose. So yeah, older when you create with XML and activities and the fragment, you can create several classes for one view. Yeah, it's no. I remember that the the word, but is the no scalability for your project, but you spend time create several classes that is time, no? It's the same for the Swift UI. You can see now in the line 23, I'm sorry, no, the line 24 to 26 is that you can create a list with 3 lines. The instructor is the array. The structure here is the object of the model. And the line 3 for above is the compile on the simulator, no? But the more important is the 3 lines. You can create the one list when label. Imagine that to make this with image in the oldest development with UIKit is the framework to create the UIs now. You can create the protocols on the table. You can the tables. You can the binding from view and the code. Create more classes. To my advice is in the future you can use these frameworks to create the views, Jetpack Compose and Swift UI. Okay, and finally, I want to finish with a quote for all listeners is learn every day and you will be a new person. Thanks for Spain. You can find me in my social media, scan me the QR code. It's pleasure to be here today and sharing my knowledge in a little bit time. Thank you, Nicolas.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for that, Kevin. And I always appreciate when software engineers come and talk about design patterns
Yeah.
because I teach design patterns at university and
Oh,
students mightn't think, is this useful? Do we ever use this? So I'm happy that you're here and you're sharing that these things are useful.
yeah. Yes, very useful for you can mm, create a model project in the future and avoid the technical debt. It's very important for big companies, no?
Yes, I agree. I agree. It lets you get ahead of certain issues that they might occur if it is they don't build with the pattern. But I think one of the challenges students get is how do you decide when to use a pattern or which pattern might be the best?
It's different feature because, for example, when you use a different logins, for example, Apple login, Google login, Twitter login, etc., you can see the factory method is another design pattern to you can separate the same code to login and you can different customer in this case Apple login, Google login, etc.
Hmm. You create a factory for each identity provider. Is that the case?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, awesome. And I wonder, what do you have like a favorite pattern, a pattern that has just always been useful to you in your experience?
No, yet in my case. I try to use for different modules when I create in the future because in my current work and my personal projects, and the first create the module with the design. After I think that okay, I use this design pattern to better in the performance the devices. No.
Yes, I agree with that. Because you mentioned that in your talk, it's good to be able to really understand, to take it in your personal projects and kind of play with it because you might run the risk of probably not applying it properly. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, in the big company exists the people that maintain well with the try to reuse the design patterns to make the great project. No, it's the great project, and my advice is when you create a new feature, is talk about with the customer, uh, but to implement. No,
Awesome, awesome. And you also made a distinction, or you did the difference between an architecture versus a design pattern. And if I'm to understand, architecture is like the overall structure,
yeah, the architecture is the columns. Imagine the house. Yeah,
right?
the columns with the create your house, and the
Mhm.
design pattern is the order, your room, your living room.
Right,
Etc. Yeah, is the
right.
example.
Definitely, I see that the design, the architecture kind of gives that overall structural foundation, and
Exactly.
then depending on what type of room you want, you can like add a pattern in and use it within that architecture. I really get that explanation. So you build a lot with Jetpack, Compose with Kotlin.
Yeah, I use in my personal projects Jetpack Compose. I think that is a new technology in the future. I think that the developers of that is the big demand to contract, and I invite to people to use Swift UI for iOS development and the Jetpack Compose to Android development is the future. Okay.
Awesome, awesome. I wonder, what's your thoughts on Flutter? Have you ever?
Uh,
Uh,
I native person.
oh, you're more
Yeah,
native based.
yeah, yeah.
So,
I,
like, yeah, yeah,
okay,
go ahead.
yeah. In the past I tried to make an apps with hybrid, but I really don't like. I always development in native is first very simple for me, and I like the WWDC engine with Apple and the Google I/O in May with
Yeah,
Google. Yeah, I really like that.
awesome, awesome, awesome. So, I think when we have our Latin speakers, get the feeling that mobile development is like very popular in Latin. Is that the case in Ecuador as well? There's a large market for that.
Uh, the very the very popular
Yeah.
Android. Yes, the very popular developers is the Android here in Latam. I can see in the North America is the iOS developers.
Awesome, awesome. So thanks again, Kevin, for that amazing talk. And we're always happy to see good software engineering practice being talked about in DevFest. You have any last thoughts to share with the audience?
No,
Awesome, awesome. So thanks again. We'll see you in the next one.
okay. Thank you, Nicholas, and happy holidays.
All
Okay,
right, same to you.
bye
Right,
bye.
bye. Great, great. So now we're winding down to our last, but definitely not least talk. Let me see if I can get this. Where are my speaker notes? Right, there we go. Just getting up my bio. Right. Great. So for our next speaker, we have Michaela Noel, another alumni of UE. Let me just get this banner up. Right. And Michaela is a specialist with risk assurance services practice with the risk assurance services practice of PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Trinidad and Tobago. She recently completed a Bachelor of Science at the University of West Indies, where she double majored in computer science and environmental science. Within the field of cybersecurity, she has an interest in data incident response and data loss prevention. She is actively pursuing training within this field while she builds her career and gains industry experience while performing technical testing for various IT audits and vulnerability and penetration tests. She's an advocate for the empowerment of women in STEM fields and actively encourages young women to pursue careers within the field. So, welcome to the stage, Michaela.
Hello, Nicholas. Thank you for introducing me. Hi, everyone.
Of course. Welcome to DevFest. So, can you give a bit of your overview of like what's your role in PwC in layman's terms?
hmm In layman's terms, what I do is I assist with helping companies find vulnerabilities in their systems. And we also provide audits of their security systems to ensure that it's up to standard. Yeah.
Great, Great, great. So I will let you get right into it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Right. So this is my presentation. It's social engineering, the cybersecurity edition. So today we're going to cover some stats, what is social engineering, types of social engineering, phishing, and the use of AI tools. And we're going to play a quick phishing game. So over the many, many years that the internet has been here, the number of users has exploded in size. We currently have around over 5 million internet users. Now, a lot of those users use social media. So in Trinidad and Tobago in particular, we have 1.1 million social media users as of February 2022. So with the use of social media comes the use of social engineering tools. So we use Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, LinkedIn, stuff like that. But what we also use, we use a lot of email services. So when you think about the term social engineering, what comes to mind? So there's a website we're going to use called menti.com. If you just use the code 59500012 or scan the QR code, we will be able to get started with that. So yeah, just what words come to mind when you think about the term social engineering? So waiting for responses. So after this, we want to get into specific examples of social engineering. Right, you think of email, phishing, bad links. Those are good. Those are good. You also think about anything else. Anything else? All right, so we'll go with these for now. Great. So, what is social engineering? It's the use of psychology to deceive and manipulate individuals. This is an attempt to get them to divulge personal information that could be used for fraudulent purposes. So, threat actors would use things like fear and a sense of urgency to trick individuals into acting in a certain way. So I would say, hey, if you don't respond to this email right now, I'm going to deactivate your account. Things like that. I play on your emotions and like fear. All right, next slide. So there are many types of social engineering, but we're just going to cover the most 4 popular types. So we're starting with pretexting, which is using a scenario that has some of your actual information, such as your date of birth or your social security number. This is an attempt to get even more information out of you. So an individual might pretend to be working for the government and they're like, hey, Mr. John Doe, date of birth, 1st of January, 1995. We need to get more information out of you to update your records. Please send the following information. And with the use of personalized information, it allows the threat actor to get into the head of the person and convince them to send more information because you trust them. If someone has your date of birth or your social security number, you would naturally think that they are a reputable person and they are seeking your best interest. The next type, we have tailgating, which is when you wait for an authorized user to open and pass through a secure area, such as the entrance to a building. So I know a lot of us might have things like ID cards to enter the building or key passes. So sometimes I know we all do it. We might forget our key cards at home or it's in our bag and we don't want to dig and search for it. So you see your coworker walking towards the door with their key card, so you just follow in after them. What threat actors can do in person is they can pretend that they are an employee and they can follow actual authorized persons into the building, which leads us into the next type of social engineering, which is called baiting, which is basically where you leave a device or something for persons in the organization to pick up and you access their systems from there. So if I tailgate you into the building, I can then drop malicious USBs all over the building, and people are naturally very curious. So if they see a USB labeled plan for new development 2024, they might say, I wonder what this has on it, and they'll plug it in. And from there, threat actors can infiltrate your system, and if there's any malicious malware installed on the USB, it can install on your device, and that is not good. But the main type that we will be focusing on today is phishing. Let's now get this right. Phishing is the act of pretending to be someone reputable to trick individuals into divulging personal information. And the two types of phishing I would like to discuss today are vishing, which stands for voice phishing, and spear phishing. So if you went to UE within the last 3 years, you would see one of these emails at least once. It's an email that says your university account has been filed for deactivation. And the font is all weird, the colors are off, but surprisingly enough, persons click these links. So this is an example of a phishing email. You can tell that it's a phishing email based on the structure of the email. So the email subject contains icons, the address, the general wording of the email does not specify that this email is for you. Instead of using your name, it'll be like these hello student, your university. There are no specifics. It's a poorly formatted email with multiple fonts and colors, and it uses a sense of urgency. And the email signature, as you can see, is generic and it has nothing to do with the SDA campus. These are more examples of phishing emails used by threat actors that were sent to UB students. This is another phishing email in the form of a DocuSign document. That link does not take you to an actual DocuSign. It takes you to a malicious website. As you can see, the use of attention in the memo, which relays a sense of urgency, has an impersonal greeting, no name mentioned, and no email footer. So, AI and social engineering. With the development of AI tools such as ChatGPT, threat actors gained a more dangerous weapon in their arsenal to conduct phishing attacks. So, an example of this is there is a tool called 11 Labs, which allows you to it allows you to create an AI voice. So what these threat actors can do is they can use these things based on a model of someone else's voice who is reputable in the organization. And then they can have a script for the AI tool to read, and they relay this over a phone call. So you might get a phone call from someone who sounds like your boss, and your boss is like, hey, I forgot my computer at home. I really, really need to send these documents. Hey, can you please go and log in to XYZ email account. And you're like, but I don't have access to XYZ's account. And they'll be like, okay, find out the information. And you go to your coworker like, hey, the boss needs you to fill out this information. And they're like, all right, cool. And they fill it out. And just like that, your information is taken. So for spear phishing attacks, how AI plays into this is that you can give the AI more information to put in the development of a phishing email. So I can say that this person is a woman, age 55, they like dogs, they are very, very empathetic, their birthday is this day, they have 2 puppies, their zodiac sign is Taurus. Can you please generate an email to obtain information from this person? And a lot of the times, it's able to structure an email that sounds a lot like human language. You know, sometimes you get a phishing email, but the grammar is off or the subject verb agreement is off. But with these tools, persons are more able to create realistic sounding emails. So we're going to play a quick game to test our knowledge on phishing attacks. So let me change my screen real quick. 2 seconds. Yeah, 2 seconds, Nicholas. I need to see the chat, so give me 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to see the chat to do this.
The YouTube comments?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see it from your side? You can't.
I'll probably have to see it from my phone.
Okay, so if any chats come up, I could show them up like this. Right?
Oh, okay.
So you would follow along. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds
just know there is a little bit of delay, so you just have to be patient. And and if not, I guess I would take the role of interacting if we don't get any engagement. Cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Great. So this is a phishing quiz developed by Google, and they're asking you, can you spot when you're being phished? So we're given 8 different scenarios, and based on those scenarios, we're going to see if we will be phished. So let's make up a name and email. So I'll just put my name and email yes@gmail.com, all caps. Right. So let's start with this Google Doc email. Let's be sure to check out the URLs by hovering over and all that. I'll do all those things, don't worry. So we have an email from Luke Johnson at gmail.com to me, which is Michaela Noel at yes@gmail.com. And the subject is 2023 departmental budget. So it's a link to a Google Doc. So hey there, here's the doc you asked for. Let me know if you need anything else. And if we hover over the link, we see it takes us to Drive. I don't know if you can see the bottom. Yes, you can. It takes us to drive-google.com/luke.johnson. So would this be a phishing email or a legitimate email? Just based on the context of the actual email itself and the links given. I know there's a bit of a delay. Oh yes, typically you shouldn't just click links from emails. You should always hover over the link to ensure that it's actually what it says it is.
Okay, so maybe I can answer the question. When you hover, how do you know what does hovering really do when you say hover?
Oh, so you just put your mouse over the link without pressing the link. And most of the times on Chrome, you'd see the actual address of the link on the bottom left of the screen.
Oh, okay. So the bottom
Yeah.
left where you see the link that you would click.
Yes.
Okay. Alternatively, I guess, can you copy? You could like copy the URL too, I guess.
Yeah, you could. You could always do that. I'm not
So,
too sure in this case
ah,
because of the actual game itself, they won't let you copy the link, but
mhm.
covering works just as well.
Cool. So this URL looks legit. No, is it drivegoogle.com
Mm-hmm. Drive/google.com.
or slash? Oh, that's a dash there.
Yes, dash dash. Yes. Make a guess.
It looks sus. I'm not seeing HTTPS for one,
Mm-hmm.
and that might not be the domain for Google.
It may not. Is it phishing or legitimate?
If anyone in the audience wants to try the comments.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go on bet that it probably is too sus.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. Phishing. Correct. This is a phishing email. Yes, it was a lookalike URL. So let's see. Mousing over this link or using a long press would show that it gives you an imitation domain. It says drive-google.com instead of the actual Google Drive link. Yep.
And
All right.
these
Mm-hmm.
imitation domains could get very deceptive. I've
They
seen they use
could.
Greek symbols, backwards P, or put an A and an E close together.
Mm-hmm.
Careful.
That's why you need to be very, very careful and closely inspect any link you get in an email. Because it may look legitimate at a glance, but when you actually get into it and you look at it properly, they're telltale signs. Right. So the next one, we received a fax. We know you're excited, but take your time. People still send fax in this day and age. So we got a fax message, no reply admin from no reply at efax.com. This is the spelling of efax.com. Mm-hmm. And it says you received a one-page fax, and the link is efax.hosting.com.mailru382.co/efax delivery. And then you see it has the efax footer at the bottom of the email. Now here's a hint. Look at the spelling of efax within both the email address and the footer.
Yeah.
Fishing again. Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing efax. Let's see another
Mm-hmm.
comment there. I'm seeing efax like in part of the domain, but then the email is fax with FACS.
Mm-hmm.
And then the effective domain is really mail RU.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
then again, there's HTTP again. So I'm gonna call like Tiana, I think I would call phishing on this.
Yep. This is a phishing email. The sender's email domain is misspelled, and the domain and the link actually points to mail.ru, as Nicholas said. So yes, the sender email address is efax.com, which is misspelled. So they can't even get the spelling correct. So they're telltale signs sometimes. The link is actually mail.ru, which you can see at the end of the domain name, which is not what you'd expect. Great. Time for a trip down memory lane. So, do you remember TK from school? You got an email from TK. TK, all these numbers at gmail.com. Hey, do you remember this photo? and it takes you to what looks like a drive link. But as you read the rest of the link, it has some interesting things, such as sys.net, which, if I remember correctly, is not legitimate. It's not a good Google domain.
Yeah, this one looks better because it still is HTTPS drive.google.com. But one thing I guess we as internet web citizens have to learn about is the URL and something called the effective top level domain, which is the main part of the domain, which would be the last two parts. So you're not really looking at a Google site here, you're really looking at a styles.net site. Is that the case?
Yep.
Additionally, sorry.
That's okay.
What annoys me is like you're gonna send me an email with a link to a picture. Why you could have just put the picture in the email?
Exactly.
Like why are you giving me the other stuff?
Exactly. It's almost like they're spelling it out that, hey, you probably should not click this. This is not a good idea. So yes, so the real domain is styles.net, which is this guy to look like Google Drive, and says the same thing.
Yeah.
Like we can do this. This can be the last one for this one. Looks like you're out of storage. I wonder what it costs to upgrade. So I'm sure we've all received an email like this from Dropbox before. Hi, your Dropbox is full and no longer syncing files. Upgrade your Dropbox. So I'm going to hover over each of the links. So the upgrade your Dropbox link takes you to https dropbox.com/buy. Get more space also takes you to dropbox.com. And this link here takes you to dropbox.com/business. And then to look at the email, it was from no reply at dropboxmail.com. So with all this information, would you consider it a phishing email or a legitimate email?
I'm gonna monitor comments in case we have a chatter here.
Looks legit. I agree with that. So I'm gonna press legitimate and correct. This is a legitimate Dropbox communication. Although the sender email looks a bit strange, it is legit and the URL is secure. So yes, so a quick search for dropboxmail.com will show that it's legitimate. So whenever in doubt, you can always Google it. Like Jade said earlier, the school of Google. Just Google anything you don't know. So click next. The URL is a legitimate, secure link to dropbox.com. Nice. Thank you so much, Tiana. All right. So going back to the presentation, based on that exercise, here are 9 tips to avoid phishing. Avoid suspicious links and attachments. Don't overshare online. Learn how to spot social engineering methods. Be skeptical. Is it too good to be true? Use 2-factor authentication. Practice good password hygiene. Monitor your account activity closely. Keep your software up to date. Don't leave devices unattended. Some of these are a little more general security tips, but it still applies to avoiding phishing. And the other tips, think before you click. Avoid using date of birth or addresses in passwords. Avoid sharing your personal phone number. Avoid using personal information in such as date of birth in pins. Right. So, what to do if you've been hacked or fall victim to a phishing attack? Disconnect all or phishing attack or a baiting attack as well, because remember, people might pick up a suspicious USB. You disconnect all wireless/network connections, contact help desk immediately if you're a UE student and you ended up getting a phishing email and you click the link. Make a report detailing the incident to cybercrime@ttps.gov, and you can contact the Computer Security Response Incident Team. Right, here are a few tools that you can use to see if your information has been present in a data dump. You can use Google Password Checkup, Mozilla Firefox Monitor, and Have I Been Pwned? Right, and that is it for me.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for that talk, Michaela. Really making sure you have our backs in securing ourselves and making sure that we do what we can because it's really getting rough out there. Many people are getting run into some issues and organizations. So every little bit counts.
Mm-hmm. Yes, happy to help.
Okay, great. So you're also a recent grad of UE, right?
Yes, I
Can you talk?
graduated this year.
Okay, great. Can you talk about that experience, leaving academic life or your studies, getting into industry, how it was like for you?
Mm. The process was pretty simple to me because this isn't my first instance of working. I did the internship with DCIT last year, so I had a taste of what it would have been like working. So the transition was a bit smooth. After I completed my degree, I applied for where I'm currently working at, and I did interviews and I got through. And I would say it's a bit different not having to do any academic work, but I intend to pursue some certifications. So for now, I'm taking a bit of a rest on the academic side until I'm ready to do that.
Sure, sure. I'm sure a little break from studying is welcome. You just did a double major. So, what you would
Definitely.
what you would say pay the most contributed the most to your success in the interviews? Because I know that's something students face with a lot of intrepidation and anxiety.
hmm I think the most important part about an interview is to portray to your potential employer your personality. So, as long as you are authentic and you are energetic with them, I know sometimes people are introverts, but I think if the authenticity is really there, if you show a keen interest in what you would like to pursue, and you show a level of enthusiasm to learn, most of the times you will be selected after the interview because employers want individuals like that.
Yes, I agree. Passion is a really big factor in the tech space. They want to see people, as you said, enthusiastic, open to learning, open to delivering real value for the organization. And one of the ways you showcase these passions is to kind of come to these events, to come and give a talk, come and just, and even if you're gonna give a talk, well, when we go back out on prem, we didn't have an in-person segment unfortunately. But when we have our meetups come up, they do some network and introduce yourself to some people because you don't know your next job or employer you might meet at these events or they might see your DevFest presentation. So
Mhm.
I want to really thank you again for being part and wrapping up the DevFest with us, Michaela. Any last thoughts or advice you would give to students or people entering the tech industry, people who want to get into cybersecurity?
Mm, My advice is just to be very enthusiastic about learning and to do some personal projects. So, what I did before I even graduated is I came up with a home lab. So, I have basically my own little server running, and I have all the media I want on it, and my sister uses it, and it was really fun. Like, I enjoyed a lot of like computer networking courses. So I took that information and I had a practical application towards it. So using the skills that you learn in school for personal projects will really help a lot.
Yes, I totally agree. I think that practical experience really played in your favor
Mm-hmm.
because just setting up a small network means you need to kind of understand how the network and IP works, how to configure the software, connect everything up together so you get these services. When you come to interview with that, the interviewer, the recruiter will just be relieved that, okay, we have someone who, knows this stuff. We don't need to teach them from scratch. A lot of people will
Mm-hmm.
come from the degree. They know they can tell you so much about the theory or whatever they may regurgitate, but doesn't even know how to plug in or actually deal with the physical components, right? So, they
Mm-hmm.
talk about IP address in a textbook, but like resolving the IP and understanding these things in the MAC address and setting up a router, it's one thing to know the theory, but actually to do something, I think really plays in their favor.
Definitely.
Okay, so thank you so much for your talk, and I'll see you on the next time.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. See ya. Right, so that about brings us to the end of another DevFest event. Unfortunately, it was really brief and totally virtual this time around. We had some plans of doing other things, but definitely follow us on our various social media platforms, the GDG POS on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and of course on YouTube as well. And we will be having a whole slew of other events. The Google Developer Group platform, they have many different seasons, right? And we have some interesting things coming up in terms of AI, web, and Android. So definitely do keep an ear. Look for us on gdgcommunity.dev. That's the official Google community platform. I do hope to see some of y'all next time we have a meetup and try to grow the community. We have so much things we can do and explore. So I'm really happy for you who are sticking with us through the end of this live stream, even for those who are joining us in the recording. We really do this event for the community to try to bring opportunities to our speakers and to those who participate. So thanks again for joining us, and I will see you all at the next event. Have a good day for now. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and all the best in the new year. Bye.